This conference will now be recorded.
Okay.
It's now 10 o'clock, and I'm going to call this town council workshop meeting to order. I will take any, will entertain any motions. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you want to, at this meeting, you want to go ahead and suspend Robert's Rule of Order?
I need a motion for that. If that's
I'll make the motion to suspend Robert's Rule of Order for the workshop meeting.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What we will do is we will suspend the Robert's rules for the hearing today to allow the public to speak and to have interaction with the public so that we can answer your questions or address your questions. So it's not a one-way conversation. The purpose of the workshop is to have a two-way conversation. So we can both do it. I will tell you that if it does get out of order, then I will put it back and we will go back to the way that it was. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is chapter 8, miscellaneous offenses and fireworks. And Chief Hoffman, you want to come up and talk to us about that? First of all, Chief, if you'll tell us how this came about, and why we're changing and why things are going. I think that the public needs to know that.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, Mr. Mayor, council, and citizens. I'm really glad to see the citizen turnout today. I don't know if it's for fireworks or right-of-ways, but it's awesome to see so many citizens here prepared to give their input on items. I will just kind of give you a timeline. I know most of the council is aware already, but some citizens who may not be aware or didn't get to watch the workshop we did on chapter 8 may not be aware. So just to kind of go back in time a little bit, back on August 10th of 21, Administrator Shanahan and I were notified by email by the town attorney that it had been brought to the attorney's attention that South Carolina law local legislation fireworks, and to the extent that a local law regulates the discharge of fireworks in any place other than a zone, meaning fireworks prohibited zone under state law, and that the penalty could only be civil and not criminal in nature. So we were preparing to rewrite chapter 8 and to get it all done at one time. So we were definitely sort of put on notice of that at that time. Moving into the workings of chapter 8, we did some research. I looked at a lot of other local ordinances regarding fireworks up and down the coast, and found that many municipalities and county jurisdictions up and down the coast still fully prohibit fireworks. Some had made some changes along the way, but most were still prohibited. So we turn to the municipal association, who of course provides a liability for the town and also guidance and best practices and model policies that are in the best interests of municipalities and mayor and council. Their suggestion, based on local regulation of fireworks, was that they recommended, well, to back up a little bit, they stated that local government authority to regulate the discharge of fireworks has evolved considerably since 1985. Based on the most recent guidance, the South Carolina Attorney General's office concludes that it is likely that a court would find that local governments are preempted by state law from regulating the manufacture, storage, and sale of pyrotechnics, which includes fireworks. At the current time, our current chapter 8 completely prohibits the possession, distribution, manufacture, and discharge of fireworks entirely. It does allow for the discharge of fireworks on the 4th of July from the mean high tide line to the water line only on the 4th of July. Further, they state that under section 2335-175, the South Carolina Code of Laws authorizes private properties to create fireworks prohibited zones and allows counties and municipalities to extend these fireworks prohibited zones certain distances, 500 feet, beyond such properties and onto public property. It also designates fireworks prohibited zones violations can be a misdemeanor charged under state law. So they said that local governments have limited authority to regulate the time and place of fireworks discharge, but state law does not preempt local ordinances concerning the discharge of fireworks, and such ordinances are thus valid to the extent that they are consistent with state law. To be consistent with state law, an ordinance prohibiting the discharge of fireworks in additional areas outside of the fireworks prohibited zones as defined under state law, 2335-175. So state law does not preempt local ordinance concerning the discharge of fireworks, as such ordinances are thus valid to the extent consistent with law. So to be consistent with that law, any ordinance prohibiting the discharge of fireworks in additional areas outside those zones or at certain times should be carefully drafted so as to impose nothing more than a civil penalty, which our proposed ordinance accomplishes, be limited in scope and not unreasonably prohibit the discharge of fireworks. So that's a key word moving forward, to unreasonably prohibit the discharge of fireworks. And then they go on to say that unreasonably prohibiting the discharge of fireworks would likely be found to, and we quote from this Attorney General's opinion in 2011, exceed a local government's police power and render the ordinance invalid under state law. So I move then to the State Attorney General's opinion written by Attorney General Alan Wilson on October 11th, 2011, and addressed to H. Colton Ross Jr., the city attorney of the city of Gaffney, where the Attorney General went through a very comprehensive review, and hopefully you had a chance to review that. I won't go through that line by line. We'll be here till dinner time. But they went through a law and analysis review regarding multiple state Supreme Court case laws and other things that establish a precedence on this matter and how municipalities are authorized to create ordinances, how you can create ordinances to regulate things as long as you're not preempted. They went through a definition of various types of preemption in there and talked about how fireworks ordinance may or may not be preempted. The one thing that the Attorney General's opinion did specifically say that municipalities are preempted by state law is in the sale and manufacture and distribution of fireworks within jurisdictions, because that is something that is specifically authorized under state law. At present time, our ordinance makes those illegal. So certainly you're preempted, according to this Attorney General's opinion, from regulating the sale of fireworks in the town. Moving forward to the conclusion of the Attorney General's opinion. The Attorney General's opinion in regard to discharge says that while we believe local ordinances regulating the discharge of fireworks are generally valid, we caution that such ordinances must nevertheless be consistent with state law. As the court made clear in several cases, local governments may not criminalize conduct which is otherwise lawful under state law. At this time, state law is generally only prohibits the discharge of fireworks in fireworks prohibited zones, and we'll get into that in just a moment. An ordinance prohibiting the discharge of fireworks in additional areas should be carefully drafted so as to impose nothing more than a civil penalty for those violations. Finally, the Attorney General's opinion is quoted as saying, as the court cautioned in the mean, local governments should be careful not to unreasonably prohibit the discharge of fireworks so as to have the effect of prohibiting another activity or business which the state has deemed legal. Such unreasonable regulation would exceed a local government police power and render the ordinance invalid under state law, which is the guidance that we received directly from the Municipal Association. With that information in mind, we worked with the town attorney to draft what was presented to you at the workshop and first reading of fireworks ordinance, which of course is just a starting point of how, as the town of Surfside Beach, do we want to define reasonable. So it is vague and subject to interpretation, and unfortunately falls on the governing body to decide what's reasonable or unreasonable. And hopefully you'll receive enough input from your citizens today regarding that to try to come to that conclusion. So we presented the ordinance on fireworks at the workshop and also at first reading. The ordinance has been renumbered from 836 under the current ordinance. As we renumbered the entire chapter, clean it up, it would now become section 8-21, which says that except as otherwise permitted in accordance with section 8-36B, it shall be unlawful to use, fire, shoot, or discharge fireworks within the town. The language regarding sale, manufacture, and distribution was taken out of that. And specified between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. in any area designated as fireworks prohibited zone in accordance with 2335-175 on public property within 500 feet within the fireworks prohibited zone and within 500 feet of the town's pier, and enter within 500 feet of the public park, recreation facility, or memorial. Additionally, within 500 feet of the church, filling station, or daycare facility, and 500 feet from any town-sponsored or authorized events specifically authorized by the provisions of 12-23 and special events, meaning that if town council authorizes a pyrotechnics vendor to come in and give a fireworks display either on the 4th of July or New Year's Eve or whatever you may authorize, that would be exempted from a violation on this. We, of course, drafted the state, the Attorney General's opinion and the state law to be a civil penalty, not subject to arrest. And of course, you have a right to a jury trial, but it is not considered a misdemeanor. It's just an infraction. So that is what we came up with as a starting point of what, of course, was back and forth with the attorney, the town attorney, who felt like that this would be compliance with the Attorney General's opinion and the Municipal Association's guidelines. So since that time, obviously there has been some disagreement and some understandably very concerned citizens about what this means, that we'll either allow fireworks, 365 days a year, as long as, in certain areas, it would be permitted under this ordinance in the residential area on the beach until 11 p.m. So in response to some concerns that I received, and also that I'm sure each of you have gotten an email or two about this, we then went back to the Municipal Association and sought some additional guidance on this so that we could be prepared for today to see what our citizens would like. So the response that we got back from the Municipal Association most recently, I believe, was forwarded to each of you by the town administrator, kind of summarized everything that I just said. And again, just a couple of bullet points that they finished with was because some changes are a little more recent, many local governments have in place ordinances that cite two portions of state law repealed by Act 196 of 210, meaning that state law that was repealed in 2010, many ordinances are still referencing things that are no longer in state law. Accordingly, the association recommends fireworks should be consistent with current law, which I feel like we've accomplished. Local governments may establish fireworks prohibited zones under 2335-175 by agreement with the landowners, lessees, and managing authorities of real property. So on that, I'll pause for just a moment and reference some emails that I received from citizens saying, well, under this portion of the law, we should just declare the town of Surfside Beach a fireworks prohibited zone. That is not the intent of the law, either by letter or interpretation. It is intended for private property owners, controlling managers of property to make those determinations. And there's a very specific process. It's almost like rezoning a piece of property. There has to be a hearing, it has to be posted, and you would have to authorize each piece of individual property as a fireworks prohibited zone. But what I did do in the ordinance was, as you can see from the ordinance, almost everything that is public property within the town, parks, other recreation areas, baseball fields, and other areas, I have sort of created those as prohibited areas, specifically within our new piers of construction. So private property owners can do that. And according to the law, that could, if you authorize it, extend an additional 500 feet out of these fireworks prohibited zones established by private property owners into public lands, between roads and intersections and other things like that, as long as you authorize it. But it could not extend onto someone else's property. There seems to be a move in this direction to clarify at the state level private property rights and rights of landowners. But at the same time, they say that you can regulate fireworks in the discharge at certain times and places within your jurisdiction. We just can't use 23, 35, 175 to do that because it is defined how that can be used in state law. And it finishes with local governments. Local governments may regulate the discharge of fireworks. You can, including by prohibiting the discharge of fireworks in certain locations or at certain times. Areas in which local governments may prohibit the discharge of fireworks are not limited to formally established fireworks prohibited zones, meaning that you can, as a governing body, extend it, make other areas of the town, just like we're doing in the ordinance that I presented to you. On the other hand, local governments remain generally prohibited from regulating manufacture, storage, and sale of fireworks. Those functions are delegated to the State Board of Pyrotechnic Regulations and the State Fire Marshal. So that's the most recent update on how we got here and what created this change to the ordinance. So I'm sure that you will receive a tremendous amount of input from citizens and already have. So for the benefit of the community and the benefit of mayor and council, I will present some options to you that I think would also be in line with everything that I just presented. You could pass the ordinance as is. You can make changes and create additional restricted areas. You could say, Chief, thanks for the information, but we're going to allow fireworks on the beach only from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., 8 to 10. If you wanted to create some type of reasonableness, which is what we're shooting for here, unreasonably prohibited. Would a court find that our ordinance, which basically no one's going to be shooting fireworks on the beach during the day on the 4th of July, safety hazard. So generally speaking, we've had fireworks on the beach from 8 or 8:30 at night on the 4th of July, and then we shut them down at 11 under the noise ordinance. Is that reasonable? Perhaps. I leave that to you and the citizens to decide. Or as a final option, you can dig your heels in on this. Other municipalities have across the state. You said, thank you, Mr. Wilson, for your opinion. However, we are the first autism-friendly municipality in this country, and we take that serious. We take the impact of our families dealing with autism, PTSD, animals who are frightened by the sound of some of these fireworks, particularly the more affordable mortars that go off and literally sound like a bomb. And we don't care. They are prohibited within the town of Surfside Beach, except from the 4th of July, from these times of this time. You have that option as well. It's just whether that will be challenged at some point. And what that means from a liability point of view is really, I'm not an attorney, so I can't really tell you what that might mean for you long term. Again, it's a very vague term, reasonable versus unreasonable. What I would ask, respectfully, of the community and of this council is to give me some guidance on how you would like the ordinance enforced. So to touch on that, if anybody's been around the town more than a year, we have a complete prohibition of fireworks except on the 4th of July. Does anybody think that that ordinance is being followed? No. Okay. We have fireworks sold all around us. And our visitors come into town, many of them for generations have come into town, folks spending time with their family and discharging fireworks on the beach and, have 4th of July every night. And over time, there's been a feeling and sort of a understanding and culture of enforcement that we don't write visitors tickets for this. And that's why it continues every single night throughout the summer. The town expends a tremendous amount of money each year and has over the years to have law enforcement officers on the beach at night or civilian beach services ambassadors. We've tried many different ways to address this. And they ride up and down the beach at night, almost every night, chasing fireworks with the Kubotas that you buy up and down the beach. There's safety concerns with that as well. But we could all agree that that has not had a significant effect on the discharge of fireworks. So whatever council passes, I would just ask that whatever ordinance you pass, let me enforce it. And that's going to be tough. People will get tickets. There will be fines. But until we change the culture of warning, 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 don't worry, just shoot them off. They'll come tell you to stop. As soon as they get a block away, go right back down and keep shooting them. Right? That's what the officers report. It's what I've seen myself with my own eyes. By the time we can get down there, they're gone. The only alternative is officers are dispatched when beach services is not. Everyone can agree. Fireworks go off till sometimes 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And officers are then pulled from other calls for service, and they're pulled out of service to go down and try to find the fireworks. By the time they get down there, people have disappeared, they're gone, they run, all that. There'll have to be a unique way to get the word out through education, through media, and just make it clear. If you violate the ordinance, charge will be penalties. And I think that conversations with other chiefs and other jurisdictions is that when they start enforcing the ordinance they have, that they determined through the citizens was reasonable, that the citizens said, this is the ordinance we want, and the ordinance that you liked and the way you wanted it to be, and they enforced it. So that would be my only respectful request is let us enforce it. Let me come up with a way to enforce it within reason. See if we can make a noticeable impact. Because if we pass, whatever we pass, if we don't enforce it, there'll be no change in the impact of the people that we are trying to make this a peaceful place for. That was my presentation.
I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions? I think what we're going to do is we're going to get some public comment. We're probably going to invite you back up.
I'll be happy to come up.
Public comment. I mean, if council has any questions.
Okay, good.
Chief, have you had to see what other beaches are doing? This affects the beaches. It's not affecting the flood, it's not affecting sparkling water. It affects the beaches, and it's all the way up and down the coast.
I have talked to municipalities who are under the same review that we are, trying to wait and see what we do. I've talked to municipalities who wish I hadn't called, because ignorance is bliss. I talked to some who thanked me for the information that they would be looking for it as well. But the majority of jurisdictions up and down the coast prohibit fireworks. But they all say the same thing that I told you here today. On the books, we can't enforce it. We just try to educate and warn. educate more, educate more. And, that's where they're at. So I think almost every jurisdiction that I've looked at regulates fireworks discharge within the jurisdiction one way or another. Some require you to go get a permit, which you're not going to get issued unless it's approved as a special event. But most generally still fully prohibit discharge fireworks. But it's just not important.
My question is, how much longer do you think the state or the state attorney general is going to go and just keep letting that happen until they come down and say, you're violating state law?
Well, I don't know, and that's probably because the law was created in such a way when the state law was rewritten that they kind of left it vague, so that each municipality could kind of decide what's going to be best for them. And a lot of that comes from, how strongly the community feels about how they want this handled, and then of course what the governing body ultimately decides to do. There has to be challenges. And you don't want to be in a jurisdiction where it's challenged.
Right.
We saw that with Common Law, in the city of Myrtle Beach. They tried to regulate something that was allowed.
Right.
So I don't know when that'll happen, or there may be additional state legislation which kind of clarifies this. But you can regulate what's reasonable, what's unreasonable is going to be a matter that will have to be taken up in court.
The other question I have, Chief, you got down here the 1 through 6, you got the 500 feet mentioned over and over and over.
Right.
But it doesn't specify that that is a public road, public park, that it stops and it starts up again at a new property owner's property. Because if I'm reading this, it looks like, well, I got another 500 feet past my house. Or the park's to the right of me, but I got another 500 feet beyond that part of the park. Kind of misleading, because it's really not, because your house is where you are, my house, my line's here. And if behind you's a park, you got to the park 500 feet, but when it stops here,
I see.
that's the end of it. And we're just across the street.
Right.
And people need to be aware of that.
So if I understand you correctly, Councilman, your concern is that if the 500 feet were to, if as a property owner, you were to have your property declared as fireworks prohibited zone,
Exactly.
that it needs to be clarified that it only extends 500 feet, but not onto other private property.
Right,
That's
right.
certainly-
That
that's certainly-
didn't say that, and I can see how that could be a conflict with people, and I've had that, had them answer that online and on emails, and I've answered them. No, it ends at your property line. So that just needs to be clarified.
Well, it ends at your property line unless the governing body authorizes, but it will stop at another property. Yes, sir. And that's certainly something we prepared to go into second reading if council wanted that change made a consensus of that.
Chief, you had said something about you can't restrict individual property right of an individual. Well, if the town goes and basically says you can't have fireworks anywhere but on the beach from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, isn't that restricting the individual's property right?
Well, if I didn't communicate it correctly, what I meant to say is under the fireworks prohibited zones portion of the law, we can't use that to go on to other people's private property. But town as a whole, you
We're
can-
saying, and what you're saying there is that we would make all public property prohibited zones with the exception of the beach from 9 o'clock.
that's one option.
That's not.
That we could offer just that way, if we then, that's what the community and council decided to move forward with, then let your tourists come and discharge their fireworks at 11 o'clock, it's got to stop. And then allow us to make sure it stops. But you could, that is certainly an option that you could make. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Can I ask one more question? Who's responsible for the damage and the injuries that occur with fireworks? That can occur.
Right. Well, I think that would be a civil matter between the people who discharge them and the people who are affected. That's what I would believe. But again, I'm not an attorney, and We don't have one here today to answer that. So I really think that's a legal matter that should really be clarified by an attorney.
Could we require a permit? You want to fire with fireworks, you gotta go get a waiver saying you're responsible for the damage and injury. Everybody that fires fireworks has to go get one from either the police department or town hall.
That's right. That would certainly be something that you could draft as part of the regulation, if that is considered reasonable. Enforcement of that is an additional challenge, of course. Who's got one, who doesn't, who's checking, all those things require manpower, right? Additional officers or additional resources, but absolutely is the answer to the question, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll be calling you back.
I'll be close. I will be close by.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Before we start, I'd just like to get point out all. And fireworks is definitely not. I think that's somewhat reasonable. I think that since we're an autism-friendly town, we should be able to still keep a ban and say it's because we're autistic-friendly. Fireworks are not autistic-friendly, for sure. The town had a ban on smoking a long time ago. Smoking is legal in the state, so if somebody would challenge it, could we maybe be made to let people smoke on the beach again? I mean, it's just an idea. Has any municipality been challenged on it yet? It doesn't sound like it, because all the wording says we may be found with violence. And I, for one, I guess would like to keep them banned. We have to allow the sale, but we don't really have to allow the fireworks. But after 11, we have the noise ordinance. It could still, we could give the chief the authority to enforce the noise ordinance and write tickets for fireworks after 11 o'clock. We don't need to allow the fireworks in order to start enforcing what we have. In another case, I was at a planning meeting this week, and they're already trying to put in play that we, at the town, we do not allow marijuana dispensaries, which I'm not for in the beach town. But can we, the way I guess it's written in the state, we can kick it out of zoning, but it hasn't passed yet. They could put it back in, that it's just another type of business, it's legal, and then we would be required to leave them in our zoning. So there's cases where we can't say things are unlawful. I think this is one case where we should at least try.
All right, I'm gonna open it up to public comments right now, but I need to make sure is that when people come up, that A, you're limited to 5 minutes. B, that all of your questions will be directed to me or council as a whole and not any individual. And if it, I will be timing the 5 minutes, and if it comes over that, I will ask you to stop. So I will take public comments relating to the fireworks issue at this time from the public. Yes.
Okay. I have a quick question. So Ron Ott, 7th Avenue North. We have explosive devices that are being used, but we have no education. We don't educate anybody. And the other thing is there a limit on the power of a, we don't want to thermal nuclear places. We also don't want, we have to limit the amount and the age. So there's a lot of restrictions. And if you're going to allow something like this to happen every day of the week, every day of the year, it's going to be a major problem. It's going to be like the Ukraine. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Sean Fallon, 411 Cedar Drive North. I well respect your comments that overall council made about noise. But if you're gonna make that a primary thing, noise, I think, and I feel for the police officers, there's not enough of them to cover everything they need to cover. I am about 4 or 5 blocks from Surfside Drive. I hear bands till 10 o'clock at night. So that's also noise. So I understand fireworks there's a danger issue. You have concern of the dogs, autism, I agree with that. But when you start looking at one thing and you say noise, you're gonna watch out, because what's gonna happen is, I don't know how the residents live around Surfside Drive. I honestly don't. Because I can hear it 4 or 5 blocks away. And I do hear the fireworks at night, and yes, my granddaughter lives with me, and the toddler that I have gets woken up. Now, I know not everybody has a toddler, not everybody has an autism child, which is close to my heart, because I do have friends that have that. We have to have a neutral across the board when you start making rules and regulations about the noise. So I would request you to be cautious about that word noise, because the noise is produced by many other things at the same time. I would be curious, though, to find what happened to Myrtle Beach when they tried to do the same thing last year, I think. I know the chief down there, I'm first going to call her, but I think there were, once again, it was manpower issues. You can put all the rules and regulations you want, but how are you going to enforce it? You got people smoking on the beach, you got people fireworks, you got people walking their dogs with no leash. There's nobody there to regulate, because the chief, well, I actually respect the police because they have so much to cover in this little town. So you can make all the rules and regulations you want, but I don't know how they're going to be enforced. And I would seriously be impressed if they could do it, because they just don't have the manpower in this little town. And as far as the tours goes, how will they know, like if you put in for permits, how would they know they have to do that? You know what I'm saying? They'll just say, oh, I didn't know that. I'm only here for a week. So I caution you, some of the wording and regulations that you're thinking about, look at it not only directly, but in 360.
Thank you.
Speaking on 11th Avenue North. With regard to permits, you might want to evaluate the state code, because issuing a permit, it may supersede or go beyond what the state permit allows, which might become a problem if you're looking at permitting, because I don't think that falls within it. As far as the autism, I can agree. I have an autistic nephew, and fireworks cause him to have seizures. So those people who are visiting this town, since it is advertised as autism friendly, during the tourist season, we have probably more here. So it's a real consideration. So that I agree with Councilman Craycott, that we need to evaluate that as well. The noise ordinance, I agree with Ms. Fallon. That noise ordinance, we need a decibel level. But there again, it's an enforcement issue. If you can't enforce it, then why put it on the books? Thank you.
I'm Charles, 14th North, Marion Council. The county right now, as I understand, is wrestling with the fireworks issue. And they're talking about exempting Briarcliff Acre and a couple beaches from Briarcliff to North Myrtle Beach. And I don't know, the chief said he's talked to a few other chiefs, maybe you ought to talk to the county chairman and see where they stand now. If it's going to be a court thing, and I think we ought to wait till some kind of court decision is made. And as far as the noise on the fireworks, years ago, we had a beach patrol. It seems that most of the fireworks were set off by the younger kids. As soon as it got dark, fireworks started. And the beach patrol controlled it very good as far as controlling the fireworks. There are all, some late at night, you can have that all the time, but most of them were as it dark, that's when all the fireworks. And the beach patrol was able to shut them down.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Donna Daniel. I live on 13th North, and I live there 9 months out of the year. We only rent the house for 10 weeks, and I have lost tenants because of fireworks. It keeps the kids up all night long, and 500 feet, the firework noise doesn't have a limit. I hear everything coming from the campground. I hear everything coming from the other end. And I know that it's difficult to enforce the fireworks, but I agree with everyone else that has spoken. We've got to find a way. There are too many people that aren't affected by it. And 4th of July, that's part of 4th of July. But the rest of the year, the residents who live here, my family's been here for 50 years. Been here for a long time. I remember whenever my father said, if you want to see anything, the garbage truck goes by at 3. And that is the truth. We live on the boulevard. And we've got to find a way. It's not fair to the people who come and enjoy Surfside Beach. It's just those few that are getting out there trying to see if they can get away. I've seen them. I have run them all. And so let's, as a group, as a community, let's find a way to just have the 4th of July for fireworks. But for the rest of the year, let's keep the noise down. And that decimal is very important. What is the decimal, acceptable decimal in Surfside? You know? I don't either. I'd like to know. I know in North Myrtle Beach, I believe 60 during the night, 80 during the day. And I would really like to know what the decimal is. That the community needs to be informed. So please help us. Keep the fireworks away, except for the 4th of July.
I'm Lawton Murray. I live at 812 North Myrtle Drive. I disagree that the police are not making a difference on keeping fireworks noise down. A lot of our problem is Ocean Lakes. I've been trying to get the manager over there and town council to make out of those fireworks. And they cause people in our area to start shooting. I believe if we stopped it over there, and there really ought to be a ban on all beaches. And it's not just the noise, which I think the noise, I know what an M80 sounds like. You know, I grew up here in a time when they shot them. These things they're shooting, I don't know how they can be legal. And it's not just the noise. They've been shooting fireworks over there for 4, 5, 6 months out of the year every night. Now, it's not just fireworks, it's particulate matter. It's heavy metal, it's gases, it's percolite pollution. These things go in the air, they stay in there for 2 or 3 days. They affect our kids, they affect all of our respiration. I mean, all these kids these days are getting out. It doesn't do them any good. It hangs around in there for 2 or 3 days, and then it goes into our water. It's not just the noise. It's bad pollution, and we should not have it every night. I don't understand. Fireworks law says the local governing body can have a prohibited zone. It also says you can find. So why change it?
Thank you.
Harry Coleman, 10th Avenue North. So I'm just trying to get this straight. One of the proposals is to allow fireworks throughout the town, except for, so say I didn't want fireworks, I can make my house prohibited zone. Ends at my property line, so my next door neighbor, he can blow off as much fireworks as he wants, is that correct? That's a yes. So I lived in the rental area for 11 years. I thought it was the greatest place in the world. Except for every single night for 120 nights, it was like a war zone. I'm not talking about a couple of firecrackers, a couple of sparklers, maybe a bottle rocket or two. We're talking about mortars. It's like they shoot off at Macy's fireworks display on 4th of July. Boom, boom, boom. Imagine that for 2 to 3 hours every single night. It's not like everyone gets together and say, let's do it on Tuesday night, let's do it on Friday night. One family decides to do it on Monday, another Tuesday, another Wednesday. It is insane. It's one of the reasons why I left the rental zone. It is insane. So now what you're saying is it possibly could be throughout the whole neighborhood. Now, I get it. I live 3 or 4 blocks from you. People shoot off fireworks. I hear a little residual noise. Doesn't really bother me. And there's a lot of people who say, oh, you know, I love fireworks. See them in the distance, hear them in the distance. Wait till it's next door to you. Wait till your next door neighbor decides it's 4th of July every single night. Or every other week. You have dogs. You have elderly living with you. You have people who are in the war, have PTSD. You have people who have autism. I don't know why we are fighting this fight now. Let the other municipalities fight it first, see what happens, and then we see what we have to do. But like Chief Hoffman said, if you're going to make a law, you have to let them enforce it. It isn't one of the, you can't be like a lot of laws here. You can't do it, but, you know, wink it or not, just as long as you don't get out of hand, you can do it. Things don't stop like that. If you want it to stop, you have to let him enforce it. Not let them get away, because they're just gonna do it again. And you might lose a couple of tourists, but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of families who come here and don't want to do the fireworks. They don't come here for the fireworks. They come here for our beaches. They come here because it's a safe neighborhood. It's not Myrtle Beach. It's not. We don't need it to be Myrtle Beach. They can go to Myrtle. So I hope you start thinking about us, not the whole world and then what they want to do. We are booked every day in the summer, every single house. So maybe pick and choose what we want to come here. We don't want to break the laws. This is a great town. I think we're overthinking some things. Let Myrtle Beach decide how to fix it. You know, somebody said Columbia, you know, they don't have that problem. Well, guess what? Irmo doesn't allow it. Irmo is right near Columbia. They don't allow it. So this is a problem throughout the state. I know we're allowed to sell it, you're allowed to, no. But you can't sacrifice people's rights in this, you know, like you have states' rights, but we should have town rights. We should all decide what we want. But wait, folks, one proposal, to have it right next door to you. Just think about it. You got a crazy neighbor who wants to blow up fireworks every day of the year. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that has a public comment on fire?
I have one.
Come on.
Kathy Goddard, 320 15th Avenue South. One fear that I have, and I've been here since Hugo in '89, is the fact of what I remember on the ocean front and directly in our neighborhood on the Smith property, which now has beautiful homes put in. It used to be an open area, a very large open area. There's about 5 homes put on it now. One of the neighbors on 16, their children just so happened were putting off fireworks in their backyard. But they came over into that lot. And we happened to go out and we saw a fire in the lot. And here the lot had caught fire from the fireworks. There was also a place right at the end of 15th Avenue South that they had pine straw around, oceanfront condominiums. And I think if research were done, you would see where the fire department had to come. So I have a fear in neighborhoods. The first noise, I live on the south end by Garden City. It is like living in a war zone. And my only relief of mind is in the winter when it lets up. It doesn't stop, but it does let up. But to think that I have to live like that and hear that, and the pollution alone, I just, and the fire hazard, that's what I fear. And I sure don't want my neighbors. We had an incident last year with my neighbors where at 9:30 at night, I don't know who it was dark, but the vehicle went down the road and they were shooting fireworks at the homes. One hit my home. Actually, they were shooting. You could see them going down the road out both sides of the vehicle towards the homes. I just don't want to live like that. I don't want to live in fear that a family's going to burn to death because somebody didn't get to shoot their fireworks off in the neighborhood. I appreciate your time and consideration.
I'm going to say that. I wasn't even going to talk about this. Kathy Kelly, for those who don't know me, I'm 1216 in Philip. So I think, I agree with Harry. You got to listen to the residents here. And I think that somebody needs to control Ocean Lakes because, you can stop it here, but my God, Ocean Lakes is right there. They do it every night just about. So it's going to be very, very hard to enforce that because everybody hears it and they go right out to the beach as soon as they hear Ocean Lake start. So I just think that, it's true. They have bottle rocket wars. We watch it. They ride down Ocean Boulevard, Dogwood, and they shoot bottle rockets out of each other. It's a game. So, kind of enforce it. I want you to enforce it. But I don't think you should, I don't think it's a wise idea to say that you, the homeowner, can shoot it off. Because then you're going to have real problems. What about neighbors that don't like one another? I mean, there's lots of that. So. Yeah. Thank you.
Town council, feel a lot better that the camera's off and I tried to speak online and I had a little bit of a challenge.
Your name and address.
I'm sorry?
Your name and address.
John Cato, 16th Avenue South. My only concern, really, I have fire hazard concerns. Of course, I don't want my house to go up in flames. And houses can do that very easily. It's definitely a concern. I think the one concern that I have is if you enforce the ruling by the state, I'm not sure how it all gets accomplished, but in order to create a fireworks-free zone, you have to put up signs. You have to have 2 visible signs that say this is a fireworks-free zone. We don't need any more signs. I think as a community, we should make a decision instead of the individual property owners having to file to become a fireworks-free zone. So that's all I have to say. Keep it simple. Any questions regarding that? All right, thank you.
Any other public comments relating to fireworks?
Yeah.
Chief, can I ask you to come up here for just a second? I have a question
Yes, sir.
pertaining to fireworks that maybe you would be able to.
I'll try, sir.
Right now, I see through the posts and everything, there's currently a fire ban going on in Surfside Beach. Is that correct?
Sir, if you're referring to the burning ban,
Burning ban.
there's a burning ban there was at the county. It's probably been lifted due to the amount of rain that we've had in the last few days. But Surfside Beach, actually, there is, due to the close proximity of the congestion of houses and the development that we have in Surfside, there is actually no open burning at any time permitted within the town limits of Surfside Beach. And when I say that, that includes like clearing of land, things of that nature. We don't issue any type of burning permits for that clearing of land. It has to be excavated and removed and taken to the landfill.
Now, where would fireworks fall in that category?
Oh, but fireworks.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just saying, you know, we're talking about people, and Ms. Goddard here said that, you know, she had people that were lighting off fireworks in the field next to them caught on fire. You know, this is a town where we can't afford to have open flames.
And Mayor, I agree, the fireworks are a hazard. You are correct. The fireworks being shot on the beach with the wind blowing, changing directions, and we all know how quickly that can happen. And the wind actually blows the embers, the brands into the sea oats, and we end up with a fire there, and that fire spreads very rapidly. We have in a neighborhood where somebody is shooting fireworks, and in a dry time, as we were in a week ago, and those fireworks land on a roof, and there's leaves in the gutters, and the brands and the embers do fall in there. Yes, sir, I am not denying that they certainly are a hazard. And as far as fire hazards go, as far as the open burning, the open burning is meant as the ordinance is to prohibit somebody from burning leaves, from burning trash, debris, yard debris, and so forth. There is an exception in there of where you can, in a chimenea within, I think it's 50 feet of any other structure, you can have a chimenea fire within your property, but it cannot extend of where you're close to your neighbor's house. That is more or less where the open burning is prohibited, is by the leaves and the debris, yard waste, which we pick up with Public Works.
Now, if I'm using a mortar, okay, and it's probably gonna go at least 100 feet in the air, how can I keep that on my property?
You cannot, sir.
Right. So I mean, if I set a mortar off on my property, it's gonna be going over 7 or 8 other people.
You are correct. It is very hazardous. There is a limit to the size of mortars. If it is a fireworks licensed company in the state of South Carolina, like we would have shooting fireworks on the 4th of July or other special events, they are actually allowed to shoot 4 and 5 inch mortars, where the legal specifications on fireworks in South Carolina, if my memory serves me correct, is limited to 3 inch mortars that the residential public can buy.
Do you think it would be beneficial for us to have the fire department work with the police department and the structure of whatever we decide to do?
Absolutely. I would be more than happy to work with Chief Hoffman, and Chief Clemens would also certainly be happy to work with you in trying to come up with a ordinance or something that would be acceptable to the state law and to the citizens we serve.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Are there any other public comments that have to do with fireworks? Yes, sir.
Timothy Courtney, South Poplar Drive. Hearing a lot about fireworks, and as we know, we allow it on 4th of July. You and I know, we hear it all day long in Garden City, to the south end. I've been told by council members before that the lawsuit pending, we have not been hit with the lawsuit. At this time, I think we should hold the ban on it and wait to see what other municipalities do before we act on this and allow this to happen. I don't know, a few times, 70-year-olds, people with autism, dogs, children. I get to a school runs all the way, it starts early, and out, lets out late. Nobody else sees fireworks all night long, in the whole city. Just take that into consideration. Thank you.
I don't, I think the town,
State your name and address.
Martin Murray, 812 North Clover Drive. I think the town used to have town sponsored fireworks. And I don't see anything wrong with doing something like that once the blue moon or so. And also, there are alternatives town can sponsor. There's now laser shows and stuff. Pink Floyd has a laser show that you have coming, with ready. Keep some of these people feeling like they have to have fireworks. We also, our beach, grass. We're lucky they haven't caught on fire since I've been here, but Pearl Beach has had that.
Thanks. All right, well, if that's the end of the public discussion, then we're gonna have council discussion on this right now. You have any comments that they have to talk about?
Well, I think we need to tune ours a little bit and allow the sale, allow the storage, allow the manufacturing. I think that's state law. As far as the discharge, give them some legs to work on it and keep it the way it is. That we allow one night a year in the 4th of July. And if it comes to a lawsuit, then we deal with it then. But I agree with almost everything that was said here. But I live a block from the ocean. I hear it every night. I hear a lot of it from the campground. Fortunately, my dog's not scared to death of it, but I've had them make me jump. So we have to give the chief a way to enforce it, and let's keep it as a ban. It does do, and I think the most disturbing thing I've heard is that we have people that don't come back because of the noise. We are very dependent upon the renters. I had at the last council meeting, I suggested that we keep it at both ends of the beach because we already have it there. And this lady happened to come over here by mistake and told me, said, we have renters. And said last year we had 4 renters not coming back this year because of noise. Now she's on the south end of the beach on 13th or 14th South. And that disturbs me more than anything. If we start running our customers away, we are dependent upon those people coming. And do they come here to fire fireworks? No, but it's something that they see. They aren't allowed to fire fireworks where they come from, but they come down here and think they are. And to me, I want to keep the ban and give the chief some ways to enforce it. Thank you.
I agree with that. Chief, could you step back up here? Now, you've heard what everybody's had to say.
Yes, sir.
I don't think that anybody can disagree with what everybody has to say. Everybody has a good reason for doing it. We talked about the autism. We talked about fire hazards. We talked about a whole bunch of reasons why we should be able to do what we want to do.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to task you to put that together based on what it is and make recommendations to the council based on the public comments and what they've told.
Yes, sir.
I don't think since I've been in the council, that there's never been an issue that's brought more calls and more attention to issues you have tonight.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
A lot of energy to support it. And I would agree to go with the thing we have on the setting off fireworks, but I do agree with enforcement. To risk enforcement and risk and working to control it. So thank you.
And so you've had some recommendations tonight. I know the mayor was saying that, Greenbrier or Briarcliff or whatever has banned it, and some other people made a suggestion that maybe talk to the chairman of the county board, the Horry County Board and stuff. If you could run it by them and get more information and stuff. All I ask you is to get all this information together based on what you've heard and come up with some sort of an alternative to what we have now. And I think that we have enough. I mean, this is personal. I think that we have enough with our autism and our fire and our noise and our post-traumatic stress syndrome and everything else to do what we want to do.
It'd be an honor to try to come up with something that will keep the community and our citizens happy, and also focus on education as much as we can, and so I will get that together.
And make sure you work with the administrator and whatever we decide before we vote on it, that we run it by an attorney.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I'd like to know, or I'd like you to tell us when you come up with this plan, how we can untie your hands to enforce this. I personally would like to know what we're doing to keep you from writing tickets or giving tickets out to stop it. That's a question I'd like to know. How can we help you to enforce this law if we're going to pass this law for people to fire, or can't fire the fireworks? Because I know, as I rode along with you, I know how busy you are. How's your officers need help to enforce this by writing tickets? What do we need to do to undo it?
Well, it's a challenge, and I can understand where some of the concern comes from about, just catching somebody shooting fireworks on our beach and writing them a ticket. Okay, I can understand that would be frustrating for our visitors. Mainly, it's understandable because when they walk down onto the beach, they don't have to look far and they see completely unregulated. And I would agree with the comments. There was one that was made here today that I've observed it myself. In my opinion, Garden City is like a war zone in the summer. And do people really know they shouldn't? It's got to focus on, we got to get as much education out there as we can. We need to work with our rental companies in town to make sure that they are putting magnets on refrigerators, something to make sure that people know this. It's just, that is the biggest challenge over the years, is saying, well, we're shooting there and we're shooting there, why can't we shoot them here? And we can't regulate the sound that's coming from those county areas, and it orders. You hear through the whole town. So if somebody fires one off 10 feet south of Melody Lane in the county, we're all going to hear it. Maybe we won't hear it as loud. It's not happening in our town. And that's all we really have control over. So, there's just been no specific examples needed, but there's been a lot of pressure over the years that I've seen to just educate more. Similar to the golf cart things. This is something that citizens have been very clear about. I want to see kids driving golf carts. And until we started cracking down on that, there was no noticeable change. But we've done education online. We inform people that if you're underage or you allow your children to drive a golf cart, you're going to get charged. And we started charging in the last 2 years. We catch a juvenile driving a golf cart, call parents, get a ticket. Because they know they shouldn't let the kids drive golf carts. People injured, kids injured. And so we had to kind of start cracking down on that golf carts at night as well. So, just this conversation and an understanding of hearing what this council wants as a whole lets me know how I need to move forward with reasonable enforcement following education. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
So the next thing on the agenda is chapter 12, streets, sidewalks, beaches, and other public places, right of ways. And what I'm gonna ask is that John Garrett come up and talk to us about the right of way issue and how it came. And then after that, I'd like Ms. Adair to come up and talk to us about the enforcement if this does pass. So, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad we had this opportunity to address this issue again after the original Chapter 12 workshop, where we talked to council about this. Chapter 12, when it was decided to revamp Chapter 12, I knew that this particular section about obstructions in the right of way was going to be an issue that's close to the heart of a lot of people, as it always has been since I've been with the town. We issue probably about 150 or so encroachment permits every year for work in the town right of way. And that's for usually driveways or pathways, or driveway extensions, flat work pretty much. Unfortunately, over the years, and I think it's probably started mostly down by the beach, people don't want people parking on their, off the road in front of their property. People put up obstructions so people won't park there. I think that's probably how it started years ago. And it's grown and grown and grown. And you go through a lot of town now, not all, probably the vast minority of town, and there's a lot of things in the town right of way. Now, when we talk about right of way, and I have to educate people on the street all the time, the right of way is the road and the area on either side of the road that belongs to the town before the private property line starts. And that is news to a lot of people when I tell them that. So when we were getting ready to rewrite this ordinance, I mentioned to council, the purpose of the right of way is for town public purposes, let's say, sidewalks, utilities, drainage, etc., and safety. The Federal Highway Administration calls it clear zone, where a vehicle has to swerve out of the way of an animal or a person to have a place to go. If a person's walking down the street with no sidewalks, there's a car coming, they have a place to go. The Federal Highway Administration recommends on local roads and connector roads, which is what we have here in town, is at least 10 feet of clear zone with nothing in it. You can't prohibit mailboxes, of course, that's federal, but everything else, there should be nothing above grade. So when we were reviewing this ordinance with the council at the first workshop, I brought up that this would be a good time to clean up the language of this particular section. And if it's going to be enforced, and I'm glad we had this chapter 8 discussion before that, so we all have enforcement and unenforceability on our mind, unless this is consistent with every property in town, it's really not enforceable, which is why you've seen the problem grow and grow and grow over the last few years. Town staff would like direction from the council on how you'd like this to be handled in the future, because it's been said by town attorneys in the past, and it's been said by appellate judges in the past related to town cases, that people in similarly situated people have to be treated the same way. So we can't write certified letters and summonses to people for having obstructions in the right of way if the person down the block has obstructions in the right of way. It's not going to hold up. So it was proposed that we put into the section that it's same as it's been since 1969. Obstructions are not allowed in the right of way except for permitted encroachments, which will be at or below grade. So driveways, sprinkler systems, piping in your ditch, things that will not affect those safety issues would be allowed. And everybody else, if you're going to treat everybody the same, would have to be contacted and given a certain amount of time to remove their obstructions in the right of way. And that's where we are right now. We haven't had this passed into ordinance yet, but that's the gist of where we are. And again, it comes down to enforceability. If you're going to carve out exceptions for people, and that's the sad reality of it, it's not going to hold up and challenge it. So I'll take any questions that anybody might have.
Mr. President. John, when you talk about the public right of way, does that exempt the town from putting anything in the public right of way?
Yeah.
Because down Surfside Drive, the public is, I mean, we as a town have put in palm trees and all down Surfside Drive that's full of trees right now. Does that mean that we're exempt
Yes,
as a town?
yes, public purposes include street trees and plantings, beautification efforts by the town. So even the CDOT puts landscaping on I-17, Highway 17 business. Town puts street trees out there. We have planting beds in some locations. That's not part of it. Yeah, as long as it doesn't conflict with the 25-foot side triangle and corners, things like that.
But how does that make it required if an animal's coming in, maybe just for that? That tree's there to obstruct.
Well, we can, the town, we're guided by what the town council wants. Town council wanted the town. Certainly do that.
Please be quiet.
Every municipality has an ordinance similar to this on the book, and every municipality has public, street trees and things like that, street pits and street furniture, garbage cans. On the right way. So it's not.
It's just, to me, it seems like we're trying to punish the town people for putting something in the right of ways when we as a town are doing that. I mean, we're putting, we as a town are paying a tremendous amount of money for these trees that we're putting in the right of way for somebody to run into. I mean, what's fair for these people to be fair for the town too? You know, if they're gonna have to take up their trees and plantations, I agree. If it's a hazard, if they put out rocks on the side of the road that a car can swerve over, run over, bust their tire and have an accident, if a fence is out on the encroachment, it shouldn't be there. They probably should move it back to their property because the law says it will be on your property. But when you come to talking about shrubberies, trees, flowers, if they're gonna have to do it, we as a town, and this place is gonna look pretty bad if we get in there cleaning out all these trees we put out.
I don't take a position either way. So if the council wants to allow certain things, shrubbery, and leave it at that, as long as it's enumerated in the ordinance, we have something to enforce.
Okay, but right now, we can have people that have major obstructions in the right of way.
This is correct.
And because they have major obstructions in the right of way, we have no way to enforce it because of the fact that we don't enforce it to anybody. Is that what you're saying?
This is correct. You have to either address it holistically as a whole, and anybody who's out of compliance with what the council wants has to be contacted, and given a certain amount of time to remove the more egregious violations. And then once that happens, then summonses can be issued. You give people a certain amount of time to remove it, and they get letters, and then you can enforce. Very similar to the fireworks.
And what is your opinion on what would constitute an obstruction in the right of way? I mean, anything above grade?
I would think anything above grade in the clear zone. I would say that. Anything that could be considered a permanent fixture, which is, something that can't be moved, like a structure or something, fence, anything of that nature. I'm concerned about safety, and because it's unenforceable the way it has been, the problem's getting worse and worse by the day.
Well, I was down this morning on Surfside, Ocean Boulevard, and between the 100 and 300 block. Okay, and there are people that on the sidewalk have a 6-foot hedge that's right up against the sidewalk. Well, that's in the right of way. That whole 6-foot hedge. So, I mean, is that a major obstruction you're talking about? Stuff like that, or is it?
It can, like I said, flowers, shrubbery. Where do you want that line to be? Where does the town want that line?
Well, obviously, we need to figure out that line.
Yes.
And that's what we're here for today, to listen to people.
There's plantings that obstruct visibility, the signage. A lot of people plant things on the corners of their property, which wind up growing to mature plants, which extend well into the right of way, sometimes over the road. There's various stripes of this all over the town.
Yeah, when I think the town would go in and clean it, and the property owner wouldn't have a problem saying nothing about it. If it extends into the right of way of a visibility, or you can't see around it, or if it's blocking the sign, you should have the right to go in there and clean it. And this property owner that owns it shouldn't have nothing to say about it. I mean, I think most people understand that.
Well, we have done that over the years. Recently, our code enforcement has been contacting property owners to cut back or remove some of the worst ones.
It's just the same way with the trees. People come in here, you have a company to come in here and clean up trees instead of the background. They don't ask the public or ask the homeowner, can I cut this tree out? They go over and cut it off. And that's what you should be doing. If it's obstructing the right way of seeing, you should be removing it. You got people that can go out there and cut that out.
Sure, we do that regularly. Anything that's hanging under 14 feet over the road, we remove the traffic, doesn't obstruct traffic.
And that's the same way with what the mayor just said. If you go down Ocean Boulevard and this bush is hanging over in the sidewalk, then they're cut it off. Cut it back and we'll take them to buy it.
Yeah, that very same bush you're talking about was recently trimmed back as a result of code enforcement action. Still by the homeowner.
But it was still in the right.
Still got 2 feet more. But I feel for you.
Yeah, it's something that's always been an issue, and we just want some clear direction so we know what to enforce and what not to enforce. And chapter 12 revision has been an opportunity to address.
Is any of it grandfathered?
No, there's no grandfather in something like that. More like a building or zoning code that has changed, and then the existing gets grandfathered until it gets changed, and then it has to be brought up to standard. That's not the case with the private.
Okay, thank you. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna step back, we're gonna listen to public comments. We're probably gonna call you back.
Okay, thank you.
Right. We'll now take public comments that have to do with the right. And here again, it's 5 minutes. Please do restart. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
No problem. Judy Henry, 11th Avenue North. First of all of us, when we moved here because it was a family beach town. It was family friendly. We moved here with looking around at the atmosphere and the environment. We didn't intend on moving into an HOA. Those of us who live in this town and live in HOAs, we bargained for that. Those of us who didn't buy in HOA governed areas, we didn't. That being said, this ordinance needs to be adjusted such that it, number one, does not violate any sighting or safety. Safety should come first, is what I'm trying to say. So the line of sights need to be clear. And that shouldn't be a question. That should just be done. When we're talking about an issue of traffic safety, but let's talk about some other things that can be out on the road. When you drive up and down these roads, you're talking about right of way. When someone's parked their car, a boat, whatever, in the right of way, and it's also blocking, and a person can't go off the road, why is that any different? In addition, we have issues here with where is the right of way? Are we going to go with a 10-foot off? Are we going to go with what someone has said before? In that case, maybe the town, before they come into the different areas, on different streets, it's a different right of way offset. So is the town going to survey and let every individual property owner in this town know exactly where their property line is and exactly where the right of way is? There are so many things to be considered. We have so many people here who have expended large amounts of money because they were improving the look in the town. And it's been done multiple years ago. And so now the town feels that it's okay to go in and have people who have spent probably in excess of $30,000-$40,000 to improve their property. But it also provides aesthetic benefits to the rest of the people in town. Where do you draw the line? Who pays when it's removed? They've already paid to have it there. And no objection was made when it was put in. If it's not a safety issue, then maybe the town needs to back off and leave it alone. Yeah. Just a quick question on Ann Westcott, 413 Cedar Drive North. I have a bush on my corner, and I know that's going to have to go. I understand I probably should have had it taken down long ago. Are you going to make me give up my bathroom?
Mayor and council, no, we've dealt with these issues of right of way for now over 50 years. We've never had a problem. I discussed with the mayor outside prior to coming over here, fence. And I thought a little bit about that particular one. That fence was for aesthetic purposes only. It wasn't blocked on the side. And I think the court's ruling to not remove it, it wasn't obstructing anything. Now, people put shrubbery in front of the house to make the house look good, the block look good, and the town look good. I do agree with the opinion about safety parts on streets where there's an obstruction with bushes and all. That should be addressed. There's a lot of that. But I don't think anybody in here disagrees with the ordinance that the pit is town property. And if you have to go through it, then you have to go through it. And I don't think anybody would argue that case at all. I have not heard one person argue that at all. Most of these cases were handled on a one-on-one. Either the administrator would handle it or the public works director. Some big boulders were put in there, and then they talked to them, and most people were moved. Now, a lot of people near the beach put obstructions there because cars would park. When they leave beer cans, beer bottles, and trash. If it was wet enough, you could see the tire tracks. That was the reason we're down by the beach. People were just too tight, they parked, so they want to park on what would be your lawn. So I would think that you would probably give us some serious consideration. At one time, it was talked about leaving low-growing shrubbery in that didn't obstruct anything. And anytime you've ever seen a fire, you've never seen a fire truck out on the lawn, they stay on the street, and they got a 100-foot hose. So it's not really obstructing. And if they came through into my house, tore up some shrubbery, so be it. It's not supposed to be there. It's town property. I certainly wouldn't come up here and argue that. So please give this some serious consideration. Grandfather things are in there now, and if they're an obstruction, then I would think. Thank you.
You're probably gonna have to comment on this, because I've been collecting, we have a lot of older neighbors here. That, sorry.
For the people listening, they know who's speaking.
Sean Fallon, 411 Cedar Drive North. I know, I think everybody knows. But we have a lot of older neighbors here that have no idea what's going on in our town. They have no connection to the internet. And this is a big issue. So I do have a lot of older neighbors next to me, and I've been educating them what's going to happen in this meeting. They're sad. They've been here 40 plus years, and they're sad. For one reason, they're not even informed. And you have to remember generations. Not every generation of 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old is going to have the internet. With that said, the right of ways. Some of these questions were given to me from my neighbors. I understand the safety thing. I get it. But also, I don't understand why you're just going to come in and do it. One thing that you should tell the owner and give them the opportunity through education that it needs to be removed. Maybe they want to save that one. Johnny was up here, Mr. Adler, and I look at his team very similar to the police department. There's more to do than time. I waited 6 years for my ditch to be cleaned out properly. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to tell me they have the time to remove all of these obstructions when the ditches need to be addressed. I'm a little confused. You're going to pick and choose what you're going to deal with at the time. That was number 2 for me. And the 6-year thing is me. 6 years I waited. 6 years. Now, that talks about who's removing them. So there was a picture online that some of the obstructions are going to include live oaks. They're obstructions. You're going to take down a live oak? Oh my goodness gracious, I thought that they were the goddess of the earth. But these are the exceptions you're going to have to address, because if you don't, you're going to pick and choose. As soon as you start picking and choosing, you guys are opening yourself up to a lawsuit. My also question I have is, where do you start? Once again, you're picking and choosing. So you have to educate us to get on board with what you're doing. If not, this group is going to grow larger, because I'm getting out in the community and I'm educating the older neighbors that are not connected. So when their little flower that's this tall is going to be removed, that's wrong. And if there's not enough information out, right now people are frustrated. You bring out this topic and you don't include anything. So I'm not happy, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here that are not. So I wish you would take the time, listen to us clearly like you did the fireworks. That was a good conversation. But I think some people's minds are already made up. And it's sad. It's very sad. I moved here to stay here until somebody takes me out in that box. And I've put lots of money into my property. And I think I'm in the right way, but God only knows. But I think you have to inform the resident before you start anything. And bottom line is, you're going to start removing it when you're going to start mowing it. You say it's your property and you have that right there. When are you going to start taking care of it? Weeding. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's just, I'm a little frustrated right now because I can't get through everything I want to get through. Thank you.
Jennifer Harris, 29 North Broadway Drive. I just want to express I've had my house for over 5 years. My question is, if this was enacted in 1969, how is it that Mr. Sleece built, I'm part of the Bella Vista subdivision, and I guess Mr. Drake, you're in my neighborhood as well. There's a lot of fences, like we have our fences. They're all within that. How could that builder have been was he given a variance to put up these fences? And we all have pools, so they have to be enclosed. Our lots are quite small. So even my house is at the 25. On First Ave North, the pilers in my house are right there. So that's creates quite a hardship, I would say, on a lot of these homeowners. Are we going to have to take down our fences? Can you address that with me, please?
The fence should be on your property line. Your property line is good outside.
So if my fence is on property line, but yet it's within 20 feet.
Where you get 20 feet. I mean, every right of way varies. Every right of way.
Okay, so.
It may be maybe 5 feet, it may be 6 feet, it may be 10 feet. I've seen some as wide as
It's pretty wide, like 20, 25 feet. But it depends. John can tell you that. I mean, they vary from place to place, but where you live, it's right on the property.
Because you imagine our neighbors and all,
Oh,
and thinking, oh my gosh, we're gonna have new fences and what about the safety for our pools and
No, I
our
mean,
renters and.
you know where I live. I got a bridge that goes over a ditch. But it's flat, it's level.
Understood. And the other concern that I have, and I don't want to nitpick because like you said, I'm saying, hey, my fence is okay. But, that pump house on North Dogwood,
Yes.
near Fifth Ave,
That's the same.
that is a very
Yes, I agree.
extreme safety
Yeah.
hazard, in my opinion. There's no space at all, right on the road. Would that be something that would be addressed?
Yeah, that's something that needs to be addressed too. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be addressed.
So a lot of fences are okay within that.
Oh, yeah, you sell them, on your property, it's on your property. That's property right, owner's property, you got a right to have a fence.
So we need to figure out where our property lines are and.
Where yours is, should be the fence. You should have a stake on the outside of the fence, within about 2 inches of the fence post.
Okay, very good. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
When you get off. Excuse me, I'm Jim Mason. I live on Bell. This is my first time coming to one of these. I came because parking's not gonna bother me on Mellow. States in front of me, not the city. I don't have anything in the instructions. Maybe one bush might be measurable, but I just listening to this, the two subjects we're talking today. I am concerned not about either of these from a personal level. From a city level, I'm very concerned. I see two underlying questions here. What's the real motive of these? Both of them. Are we turning into a Myrtle Beach on purpose, yet we advertise ourselves as a family beach? I'm here because it's a family beach. I'm 5 miles from the beach. Garden City just explodes. I understand that. I knew that when I moved here. We have a few at the entrance, not many. So the fireworks, in my opinion, and the parking, moving this right away back is to get more parking for people who aren't from Surfside. That's to take care of people back, like the new addition down here at Garden City. And we're going to punish the people of Surfside for what they want so that we can start becoming a Myrtle Beach with more traffic than we got, more people, probably more nightlife, more guns, and it's just 20 years away. And this starts it because I honestly, why did these come up at the same time? Have you all had a discussion about what can we do to increase parking? You know, people live in Surfside don't need parking. We don't have parking. And yet we say we're family and I see nothing but commercial. So are we going the wrong direction on purpose? Fine, I'm old, I won't see it. But my grandson will, because I'm gonna give him my place. Now, he may like it and sell it and go to Myrtle Beach. But he's young. You understand what I'm saying? I don't really care about the parking. I don't care about the fireworks as an individual. But as a town, I really care. Because I see us going down a road that 15 years from now, 20, this place will be another Myrtle Beach. Thank you.
John Cato, 16th Avenue South. I'd like to piggyback on what he said. First, I don't understand what a major obstruction is. That's the question. I'm having a tough time understanding why this is even an issue in the first place. That hasn't been communicated. And I'm curious if this is like a setup for a construction deal or sidewalks and for parking, like my neighbors, or neighbors, right line. So what's the underlying motive? And why is this even an issue? Why does it need to be brought up? We have very small lots in this town. That's my driveway essentially. I need every square inch possible in order to get my cars there. So I see this also affecting my ability to park close to the road. So there are no sidewalks on my street, it's 16th Avenue South. I don't see any traffic issues. People drive up and down the streets all the time. I have seen zero issues. So I don't know why that would be part of this either. I'm just confused why we're even talking about this, because I need that space. That's my driveway. I moved here because it's a small town feel. I want it to stay that way. It doesn't need to be overdeveloped, in my opinion. I think a lot of the people that have moved here for that reason. We don't want an HOA. I intentionally bought a house without an HOA. Asked my real estate agent, Janice Saliano. I said, I'm in a place without an HOA because I don't need people breathing down my neck all the time. And that's what it feels like it's becoming, is one large HOA. So I want to know what the underlying motive is. What's the ulterior motive? Is it to set up a multi-million-dollar deal for some company to come put in sidewalks? What is it? Why is this an issue? I haven't known why this is an issue. Does anybody have any answers why it's an issue?
Going through the ordinances. We were going through the ordinances. This has always been an ordinance. I do believe it needs a lot of fine tuning. We need to probably step back from enforcement of it, but at the same time, it is getting a little out of control in some places where there's fences, big rock, not just one or two, but the whole front of it. They're parking and big rocks.
Why is a rock an issue is what I want to know. Why is a rock an issue?
If you want to.
Why is a boulder an issue?
If someone
You just bought a boulder for $118.
somebody's coming down the drive, that your normal instinct goes to.
I haven't seen any traffic.
I know, but with that being said, if the whole town, you have an issue.
I think it can be taken care of individually.
But we need to somehow determine what is allowed, what isn't allowed. And if you want to keep what we kind of, as a town, say is not allowed, you apply for a variance like you would for zoning. And yes, it kind of gets into selective, but not if it's written down what type of items are allowed and what is not allowed. I know it sounds a little more like 4A, but most towns, the right of way is the right of way. You don't put anything in some towns, period, except for mailboxes. They're the only things. And most areas where a sidewalk is allowed or is, there's nothing between the sidewalk and the street, period, except for flowers, and flower bed or your mailbox. So, it just, what else?
Yeah, that sounds like it's a very non-issue the way that you're explaining it, but maybe it's brought up a good point of it's a larger issue where we're creating rules, very specific, defined rules, when there's no problem to even create in the first place, which these rules can create.
That's why it was brought up at this time, because we're going through the ordinances, and it was already an ordinance. If some of the people that would have maybe took into consideration what some of us wanted to do and actually permitted, have permits issued for variances, some of this probably would have alleviated everybody's fear that they're going to have to tear out everything.
Well, what are the plans? You said that you have some plans and that's why I came up. What are the plans?
Here's my thoughts.
the beginning of it, it's all.
Mayor,
Where does
Mayor,
it go?
Mayor.
Anybody want.
Yeah. Where does this go? Where does this?
This is not, this is just thoughts of what we do, what we need to this ordinance.
So there are a lot of signs that we have to start creating for fireworks and hazards, and now we have to, look at every single tiny rule. Do we have this much time in our lives? We have to go fine tune every single ordinance. When we have a very nice, well-operated town that's very family friendly.
I'm a firm believer, and if you have a law, you enforce it or you get rid of it. You cannot get rid of it in this case, because if you allow anything in the parking, the sky's the limit.
And our time is way up. I appreciate it.
I'd like to address that. It ain't that we're wanting to create a Myrtle Beach. We're just wanting to keep it from growing into a Myrtle Beach and having the sidewalk and the roads obstructed by people putting in anything out there. It's, if you've got a tree in the right of way, what we're trying to do is look at our ordinance that we've got on the books and try to make it better. I promise you, I'm not trying to turn it into a Myrtle Beach. We're not looking for more parking. We're looking to make it where everything works right. I mean, if we come and tell you that you can't put that rock there, we can go tell our neighbor that he can't put a rock there either. But it ain't because we're trying to turn it into no Myrtle Beach. Because I don't go to Myrtle Beach for that reason. I moved here for the little sweet town we live in.
We have enough concrete. We don't need more sidewalks. We don't need to turn this into the culture, northern towns. If you're from the north, you know what I'm talking about. The DC suburbs. We don't need that. We just need it chill.
But if you in our position and you hear people talking, other people besides you, they'd like to have some sidewalks to take a walk on instead of the road. That is our right. That is our public right of way. We can go in there and put sidewalks in. That is to make the town better. It ain't because we want to turn it into something else. There are other people besides you that come to us and say, well, why don't we have a sidewalk on Cedar Drive? Why ain't there a sidewalk there? Because if they walk on Cedar Drive, they're walking in the road. But we have a public right of way, which we own, town owns it. We could put a sidewalk there, but it ain't to make it a concrete jungle, I know it.
Yeah, I have a lot of people on my street that walk the roads and there's no issue. So
Sir.
I think creating more of an issue.
Everybody didn't get that opportunity.
Well,
I'm done.
all right, thank you, sir.
But why is he giving information and nobody knows?
And that's why we stopped it.
Well, he still got to pay.
I'll take a picture of it.
Well, that I don't know.
Well, I think once
Yeah.
again, on one side. And now.
Well, I'm not sympathizing anymore. I don't know if everybody understands that there's easy to regulate every nook, cranny, city, town in the United States of America. When you have zoning laws, they come with it. Now, it's not just in this town. Mr. Laverne brought up, they're looking at these ordinances and our right-of-ways have been avoided for 50 years. They haven't looked at them. But if everybody wants to see where your right-of-way goes, there's a drainage project going on 2nd Avenue North. If you take a ride down there, you'll see the little flags that show everybody where the right-of-way goes. And people can start getting an idea in front of our house too. Most of the streets are not that deep. This one's pretty deep. You can take a look at that on the way home on 2nd Avenue North. Take a ride down there and you'll see the where right-of-way is.
Thank you.
Sean found 411 Cedar Drive North. There's one important factor that I wanted to bring up. I got almost all my neighbors one, but not mine. The last meeting I attended, I spoke up. The day after that meeting, there was somebody at my house telling me I needed to remove a plastic sign, a little man that says slow down. And then someone in the city approached me the day before Thanksgiving. Now, if my little plastic sign is obstructive, that's a shame. Because guess what? I went down Hollywood and I counted 5 others. And I knocked on their doors and said, did you get a notice from the city? Did a person come to your house? No. So why was I picked out? I don't understand that, because I spoke up my feelings at that meeting. And this is what we're afraid of. We are afraid of, we come up here and speak, and I don't think I'm the only one. Am I going to be the first house to be looked at because I speak up? We live in the US. We have the right to talk. We have the right to speech, but we also should not be crucified for what we believe in. So guess what? I did not take that sign down. I did not. If you're telling me that because my granddaughter played, then in return, you need to catch all the speeders and Surfside, and you're not going to. So my little sign might save a child's life. So it's obstruction, it's in the way, but you're gonna tell me I gotta take that sign down? Shame on every one of you who voted for that one. That's all I have to say for now.
Mr. Mayor, Council. I would say this has come on the councils before you for years, year after year after year. And the old saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Now, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna have to lead by example. With an oak tree on Cherry Drive, right in the middle of the right of way. If you did that, I guarantee you, not gonna survive. The sign on Melody Lane, US 17, right on the corner, trucking, concrete, electric, was put there without a permit, without an encroachment law. If you're gonna lead by example. The town is in violation of what you're proposing right now. You have a library, you got railroad ties out in the right of way. I can go on and on and on. So I would caution you, be very careful with this, because it's gonna be detrimental to the town, what it's gonna look like. In other words, you're gonna get a lot of dump trucks here. Thank you.
You know, I don't usually come to speak. Kathy Kelly, 1216 Dogwood. Like most people, okay, when I moved into my house, I bought my house, I was excited, I live at the beach, okay? I didn't think for any reason that I could not plant flowers for my patients in my yard. I did, so I was ignorant. And I'm sure everybody feels this way. If there's something in the way that has to be removed, because there's gonna be pipes laid, or we're gonna have HTC come in and lay fiber, I'm all for it. I think everybody, if you went up to them and said, hey, you know, this isn't our right of way, I mean, this is how I feel. And you need to move that, I would move it. Not a big deal, right? But if you were telling everybody, like you're saying, hey, I think it's the way it's coming across to everybody that, you know, if you got this, it's on. Because like Tim Courtney said, you can drive through town. There are so many different obstructions. And even across the street from me, I have 50-year-old oak trees that are literally 5 feet off the tree. Are you gonna remove them? I don't think so. Nobody's gonna keep it. But, you know, a lot of us take care of that stuff. I take care of my stuff. I think if there's safety issues, absolutely. Go after those people, tell them to mow it, have the township do it if they're not here. And I can tell you, just on Dogwood alone, there's properties that they don't even take care of properties. Nobody does anything. I mean, there's trash, the grass is this high, but what's being done about that? Nothing. Right, nothing. So there's so many issues here, and I think this is, you know, I think we focus on wrong issues personally. There are many issues in this town that need to be addressed, but I think it's the way things go about. people post stuff online and things like that. Maybe mailers, maybe mailing something to everybody might be an issue, because there are people that have no clue what goes on. You know that. They don't have internet, they care not to read this stuff online because most of it is people fighting. They don't want to read that. You know, that's just how I feel. I'll be happy to move my stuff if need be, but, you know, I take care of it. If it's a safety issue, I just think you need to go after individual people, if that's the case, and say, hey, your stuff's hanging over the street here, we can't see, or, you know. But certainly, anybody can, they need to move out of the road. There's plenty of places to drive, and even if you run over people's flowers, they're not gonna care. I mean, I don't see that being an issue. It's just my thought.
Thank you.
Kathleen Goddard, 220 15th Avenue South in Surfside Beach. My rocks are by a meeting that I had this week. I'm sure I'm the problem with my little rocks up front that have been there forever under Mayor Johnson and Mayor Hyman. And now it's a problem. I feel like I'm being targeted. But that's okay. What I say is, I think sometimes when people stood up here and said selective enforcement, that's exactly what's going on. You know, years ago, we had a ditch almost up to my chest in front of our place. The road looked like a horror. In fact, there was no road when I came here. And my husband and I put good money out before 50-50 or to enhance, to make our little property look beautiful. And then we put sod after sod, it burned up. So we got a watering system put in to make it beautiful. We talked about the edging, our driveway curves. So we put little plants out. They matured, we jerked them out and had new plants put in. But we had people, because we've got we had 3 beautiful shade trees. They would come up the road and they would park on our sod. And they would sit there and it would burn holes in the sod and ruin the sod. We replaced the sod 4 times and we, God knows how many big heads we replaced on the watering system. But those heads at that time were $70. So we talked to a few people here in town. They said, well, put something out there so they can't hit your heads. So we went out on 707. There used to be a rock farm or a landscaping place. And they brought a big semi truck and dumped our rocks. And we put them out there just to protect the heads. They're movable. My rocks are moved. When they paved the road, I asked my gardener to please come because I can't pick over 8 pounds, but I asked him to come move those back, get them out of the way. And then when they were done, we put gravel underneath of them and placed them. They move. But if it's an issue that everybody else in this town is going to be harassed and abused by my lawns, I'll gladly take those rocks out and put them in my garden. But don't turn around and tell me, tear everything out, tear it up, and then you're going to take care of it. Because you know what? I've seen what has been taken care of. And I can tell you many lots in this town that need a lot more addressing than rocks or gardens or landscaping that haven't been addressed, that haven't even been brought up. And yet nothing's said about that. But I will take the fall for this. It's probably my rocks that are causing all this. But I'll move them. I'll move them. I'll gladly move them. But don't make everybody else in town have consequences. Thank you.
Any other public comments on this?
Okay, I want Martin Mayor on behalf of Ocean Pines 1.
Yes.
Hey, good.
My name is Nancy Roper. I live at 611 14th Avenue South, live in Ocean Pines. We have 400 families. I walk, I turn 25 feet from the middle of the road back would be the right of way. I walk that. That goes into some of the buildings on 13th Avenue South. This is going to affect our lighting, our parking entrances, and I just think you're opening your can of worms. And we go back 40 years. My place was built 40 years ago. Now you're telling us we have to move our entrances or take out all our lights. Who's going to pay for this? Us as homeowners are going to pay for this because we have HOA. So I'm really upset. You've got to, I'm all for the right of way and clearing the right of way. And if you tell them to move a bush or plant, that's one thing. But to start saying we're not going to grandfather anybody in, and I've read this on social media, quoted by some of you. There'll be no grandfather in. We're going to remove all this stuff that you don't remove. So we need answers. And there's a lot of very upset people. We've got 400 families. Thank you.
Tim Gordy, 15 South Poplar, speaking in regards to Ocean Pines 1, Ocean Pines 2. This past spring, they were given permission by the mailboxes on 14 South between Poplar and Hollywood to put railroad ties and rocks. It looks absolutely beautiful. They actually put palm trees in. Absolutely looks beautiful. They were given permission by the town to do this, and now you're going to ask them to remove it. Are you going to pay them for all the money they put into this? They put thousands of dollars into this. Just like the town had put thousands of dollars to Ocean Boulevard for palm trees, and it looks fantastic. It really does. And there are places to move all those cars. You have no problem when the people live such like Freddy's and they hit the stop signs, they bounce all over the line. So there's always that sidewalk they drive up on. We don't have a problem with them. They usually make it home, but it's dangerous. But think about doing here. There's a lot of HOAs, and even with Ocean Pines 1 and 2, their wall, the gate, been there for how long has those pines been there?
Over 40 years.
40 years. Their wall would have to be removed, and so it passed the right way. They're talking about, I mean, the damage would be done in this town where it would look like a war zone. So please think about it as we move forward. This is why past councils have never went back here. I understand fences are a problem because they're fixed. You hit a fence, it's a problem, but then you guys get to do your own worst violators. Again, as I said in the past, Melody Lane is 17, you have a blocking unit of the corner. It was put there illegally. How do I know that? I was here. And it was happened. You never had the same enforcement form. The welcome to Surfside Beach sign in the medium, right here on the north end, that's illegal too. You don't have an enforcement permit. Should you get a ticket?
Yes.
Right. We the people, the small town, that's why we came here. I came here 20 years ago, started shopping around with my kids. I still have a 15-year-old. I got one finishing up CCU. Again, it's a family beach. We want to keep that way. It's never been a problem to this day with the right of way. Okay, I see the problem with the fences. Yeah, I see there's a little bit of encroachment, but there's never been a problem. All of a sudden, this council came up with it. Past councils in the past have gone past this because it's pretty much there. Looks gorgeous. You start doing this, it's going to look like a new one. Please, come do this to us.
My second time around here in Westcott, 414 Cedar Drive. I think it's pretty clear to the council members how the people feel. If you don't know now, you are never going to know. The only question is, are you the federal government or are you our local town? Are you going to listen to us or are you not? That's the end of the story.
It's 13th Avenue South. I have a question. A little bit ago, someone came up and you were talking about the right of way, and Mr. Drake. Is it 5 feet or 10 feet? What is the right? Can anybody answer that question?
Rule of thumb would be from the telephone pole to the roof. The telephone pole to the roof. And some of them varies a little bit. It's pretty close, telephone pole. Rule of thumb, telephone pole to the roof.
Correct.
That's utility. If you just look down in the straight road, they're all on straight road for a reason.
Right, understand. And I agree with, I think that, most folks have done things to, one, either beautify the property, which beautifies the town, or to, deter parking in front of their homes or their units. We certainly have that concern as a complex. We have that concern that there would be, particularly with all the new development and growth that's coming in, people are going to be looking. We already have problems with people parking in the parking lots and going to the beach for the day. So I envision that they're going to not want to pay, which hurts the town, and we don't want that to happen. And they're going to park, and then we have the problems with the beer cans and the, late nights and all that kind of stuff. So, thank you.
Judy Henning, I wanted that in North. I invite you to come and look down my street, 11th Avenue. You said the telephone pole?
Rule of thumb.
Oh, your rule of thumb is a zigzag, okay? Do I get to pick the telephone pole I want the property line to be on my street or any other street? Because
Every lot was surveyed before a house was built. Survey's on file. The stakes are in the ground.
survey might be on file, but those telephone poles were placed erratically on a street. You cannot use telephone poles as a line of sight. That is one that really happens, okay?
Just a general rule of thumb, anybody that owns Petrie, 410 North Myrtle, anybody that bought a house recently is gonna have to plat that. And your plat now will show your exact corner. It will also show the street, and it will probably show the easement and tell you how wide it is. My easement happens to be 30 feet, which is a pretty wide one, but they vary based on when the plat was laid out. The easement was based on what the city thought the street would need. Was it going to be a larger street later? Was it a small side road? Maybe it didn't need a big easement. Maybe the street would require a sidewalk on one side or the other. But to find out for sure, pull out your plat now and look at your corners.
Thank you.
Why not Southern Avenue North? And we'll come to these, the right of way. If there's something small in the right of way, business happens, right? If you can move them within a couple hours, well, I think they're okay where they're at. But if you have to bring a construction firm in to remove it, well, then there's no problem with that. But most people have small things in there, daffodils, flowers, bushes, so what? They're not hurting anybody. And it's been okay for 40, 50 years. Some have issues, you know. We were rocks a lot.
Lynn Manchester, 1414 B. I just want to tell you my personal experience. We lived in an HOA since 1993. But it's horrible. 2 years ago, we bought the house in the corner of 14th Ocean Boulevard and 50th Avenue. The people behind us rent. They love to park along that edge. So 2 times, last year was our first summer, and boy, was it an eye opener, because 2 different times, the renters just parked all the way up there. And on one particular day, it had rained for 2 days. As he's pulling out, he just digs him a trench, at least this deep, all the way up. So now if that happens and the bushes that are there, would the town replace and fix that yard back? Because we have a sprinkler system. We take a lot of pride in wanting our property to look nice, and we work really hard to kind of improve it. We have little posts that are not quite knee high. They can be moved because the renters move them when they get part of it. The other thing that's very frustrating is the beach access is right across the street, and you can see them parked all on both sides of 15th. But guess what? The parking places at the Holiday Inn are open. So they're getting free parking. And I just want to say, I really wish I would consider this. These little posts can be moved. Certainly, if they needed to do power lines, HTC, anything, move them. But please let me keep them there so they don't, the renters behind me don't completely destroy that little strip of grass right there and make it look horrible. Because I want to keep it nice. Thank you.
Well, that concludes the public comments. Thank you very much. That's been a whole bunch of public comments. It gives us a whole lot to think about. John, I'm going to ask you to come back up again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with Kenny. I mean, you've heard all the public comments and everything they have to say here. You know how the town feels. What do you think is an alternate or a viable solution to the concerns of the rest?
Well, I'll just say, like in most issues, you know, no matter what council decides to do with this, it won't make everybody happy. We do get many complaints from people who aren't here today, who complain about their neighbors when they put things in the right. And it sucks to be able to tell them we can't do anything about it. Or we're not enforcing that. So what I like, and I think staff in general with any ordinance, would just like direction as how the council would like to proceed with it. If things are going to be allowed, we can enumerate it in the ordinance, and then we have a direction to go in. We need to treat everybody even-handedly. As I said, we cannot selectively enforce. We cannot tell somebody, you have to remove that and tell the person down the block it can stay. You know, staff, you know, our hands are tied with a lot of things, and it's not a good position to be in. You know, we don't want to be in the business of discretionary enforcement because that's a loser every time. So we can talk more about it. There's a compromise to be reached, or we can delete this section altogether. The staff will enforce whatever council puts on the books.
Has the town of Surfside Beach done any kind of assessment to, you know, we talk about the difference between having, you know, plants and stuff in the right of way, and we have what people call obstructionists. Right? We have basically obstructions in the right of way. Do we have an inventory of those property owners in the town of Surfside, which we consider their right of way violations to be obstructionists?
No, we don't have a list or a database that hasn't been completed yet. I think at the end of this process, whatever it is, we'll have to go and decide what we want to look at.
And then you also talked before in the very beginning about line of sight and certain things that are in the right of way that are obstructing the vision of intersections and stuff. Have we done an inventory of that?
There is an inventory. We have certain spots that we routinely trim back on corners and things like that, like the stop signs, as far as public works goes. Some people have gotten code enforcement letters to maintain their property better in certain cases, but there's certainly not a database of that information. You know, again, depending on the results of this process, we'll have to come up with a game plan on how to move forward or not. It's really up to the council how you want to proceed. As I said before, this is not punitive. This is something, just a desire to be able to either enforce uniformly or not, as other municipalities do.
Council have any? Mr. Mayor. I think that we need to work on this a little bit.
Come on. And inform the residents.
Well, I mean, that's our whole purpose of being here today, is to let you guys have input in it. You know, we haven't made a decision on this. We've had the we brought it up in the last council meeting, we see how everybody's upset about it. We know that everybody was upset about the fireworks and everybody was upset about the right of way. That's why we're here today, is to let the residents have their thing. We need to act accordingly to it, so.
I'll just clarify, some talk about right-of-way widths, and it varies throughout town. There are some right-of-ways in town that are 40 feet, 50-foot right-of-way, 60-foot right-of-way, 75-foot right-of-way. So it really depends on what block you live on, where that line would be. So in some cases, you might think you have a fence or a wall or something right-of-way, it's probably private property.
But if it's a 40-foot right away and I've got my fence on the 30 feet away, that's more.
40
than
foot,
anything else.
including the road, so about 10 feet on either side of it.
Right.
Power poles are generally a good guide, but they're not exact.
All right, well, we'll definitely take a look at it. We're probably gonna want to talk to you some more about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to give any input that I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Are you going to, I'm sorry, Jim Mason on Surfside again. Are you going to allow parking on this one? No.
But if it's clear zone, then it can't park.
Oh, but they park in the clear zones now. And you're in effect going to be putting cars in front of people's houses.
Well, hang tight, because as soon as we get done with this, we're gonna be talking about.
Yeah.
So if you want
And
to.
the reason I use the magic word safety, obstruction. How many years ago was it when you attempted to put parking meters on Ocean Boulevard, and when they opened the door, they were out in the middle of the street? So is this not a simple, semi-underhanded way of getting additional parking for people who don't live in Surfside?
We haven't changed anything. You sit down and read the ordinance right now.
Oh, yes, but the ordinance is one thing, but practicality is another.
Well, it's enforce it or don't. That's.
We haven't enforced it for 40 years. Have you had complaints of people screaming and yelling?
Yeah.
Are you enforcing it or not?
Or not enforcing.
Well, then take care of those individual situations. What's good for givers exceptions to every rule.
Oh, yeah, this is make ordinances for themselves.
I just see an underlying thing here, Wallace, because the two subjects are for people from outside Surfside, not for the benefit of residents of Surfside. We need fireworks. We're considering it now because it'll attract more people. We need parking spaces. That's a foregone conclusion. But if we've got 20 feet, 10 on each side of each street, we can park hundreds of cars for people who don't. But that's the result. What your intentions are, it's sometimes different.
Mr. Mayor, it's not an intention of people parking. People can park there now, whether we pass this law or not. They can park on that property.
Right. Sure.
They can pull in and park. So we're not trying to create parking. They can do that now. Whatever we do. That's it.
And you're creating a structure. You are saying you're doing this for safety, but you're going to be allowing additional parking. On the second.
Well, I agree with you. I think you're all saying that. But what I'm trying to explain, people has the right to park on that property. If there's an open spot there that they can get their car in, they have the right now to park. So we're not trying to create parking.
We're going to give them additional places to park. We're going to make everyone movies.
I agree. I don't know who does out of property line. I mean, I'm all for that. I'm just trying to explain to you, people can park there now.
Sure they can. If there's not a tree, if there's not a hedge, but the minute you take that out, you're going to line cars up in front of that house and that home. That's what you're going to do. You're going to put cars in front of every home in this town, 4 or 5 blocks back, not just the rental zone.
That wasn't the intention of what.
Oh, it's not the intention.
That's-
the result. You're dealing with human nature. And you don't always get the results you want.
All right, thank you,
Human
ladies.
nature doesn't change.
Yes, sir. Sure.
I don't want to interrupt this conversation because it's very.
Well, first of
Sir.
all, we need to know your name and where you live.
Okay, William Clark, property owner at 715A South Ocean. Yeah, I understood you were talking about setbacks, just the parking issue. I think it's very important. You said, it is a conversation also involving easements between properties. I was coming to talk to someone today to discuss this. Storm surge during hurricanes comes up through properties and exits and deposits on the street. And that free flow of water is important so that it doesn't destroy property. I have a situation where I'm next to a condo, 6-unit condo, and there's like a 10-foot separation of like a 5-foot easement on my side of the property line, 5 foot on their side. And they have mechanical units that are, they're probably above the mean sea level at 18 or 24 inches. But the structure itself traps and prohibits the movement of the storm surge to release that pressure, and it backs up and accumulates debris. And in the case of Hurricane Matthew, that debris and excessive water flowed underneath the fence and dumped about 2.5 feet of dirt, sand into my pool, and caused thousands of dollars of repair for myself and replastering the pool.
Okay, that
That
is not why we're here
Okay,
today.
well, the big scheme of things, I mean, it's a small thing for me. But the parking issue on the setback in the front sounds very important.
Right.
But, and the condo situation, probably grandfather clause, probably units have been there probably 10, 15, 20 years. And I've only owned my property about 12 years, so. But during Matthew, it was a huge problem. They don't have any real mitigation to storm surge on their property, ocean side, prevent that movement and any kind of flow of that of the ocean as it rises, accumulates between houses or flows through the house. And it's, in my particular case, which is a small thing, it's bothersome. And I just would love to have it corrected. It would require them moving their electrical to underneath and raising the platform underneath there to free up that easement between the properties.
Okay,
But that's not what we're,
that's not what we're here.
No, it's not on the agenda.
I came in late.
Okay.
I understood we were talking about setbacks and easements. And I felt like I needed to speak about my particular case, but I'm all for the parking issue.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, one more time.
No,
You can too.
no.
3 or 4. No.
The workshop.
Yeah. People have been up here more than.
Rod Schilling, 220 North Yale Pond. Just, and boy, I feel for Mr. Adair, because it is a tough situation. He's talking about clear zones, and I think you gotta, if you're deeming it a clear zone, then it's a no parking zone. If it's in front of somebody's home and they're planting flowers or they want to maintain the grass and everything, then it's also a no parking zone. So what needs to change is probably the ordinance saying that you're free to park in any area that is deemed the property of the town. So if it's, if it's in a location where, yes, we can make it parking, which is kind of what the parking committee has been tasked with doing, then that's great. But in front of somebody's home, if we're saying, just like they said, it is an obstruction, a car is an obstruction. So that's a clear zone so people can walk or get out of the way of that, then it should also be deemed automatically no parking, whether it's in the line of sight or not. So just have a big easement, you could probably put a semi there, so anyway.
Man, Mr. Mayor, it is workshop. To me. It was brought to my attention from some of you guys that the reason of this was, if there was a fire, okay? I was in the fire service, and anybody that's been in fire service, don't put an apparatus right directly in the building to structure fire, because you have radiation heat, goes a little burn, take truck. Firefighters will take the burn, it's happening across the nation. The second thing, and the last thing I'll say, so we can get home, is I've been here many years, and we had parking with our golf carts. We would park them on Ocean Boulevard, but the town obstructed it with palm trees and flowers, and it looks great, and they took away our parking for our residents on Ocean Boulevard. So what are you guys doing? Is you're forcing me and my family to go and take a paid parking spot with a car, and we're taking away revenue from the town. We used to be able to park on Ocean Boulevard, but you guys have planters and palm trees there. Now you have signs that say no parking all along Ocean Boulevard. So why do we're taking away revenue by doing that when I could bring my wife and children, park right on the Ocean Boulevard. A golf cart doesn't look bad, but you're kind of contradicting yourself by saying you need to remove all these obstructions out of the right of way, and the town has all this stuff in the right of way, and you stop them from parking it, but you're also saying cars are allowed to park there. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to close the public comments and begin reference to the right of ways. And, council comments on this? I think that we have some more to do on this before we get that.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a better look. Last thing we're going to go is the park. And with parking, who do I get to come up and tell us about the park? Who is the chairman of the park committee here? Yes, he was. There you go.
Harry Coleman, 16th Avenue, 10th Avenue. It's been a long meeting.
Sure.
I can do this off the cuff because nobody invited me to this meeting. Only reason I found out about the meeting was Facebook. Didn't know I was going to present at the meeting, but I'll wait. It would have been nice if someone would have called me up and said, hey, you have to do a presentation. Parking committee came about to increase the amount of parking spaces. Also looking at directing visitors to available parking that they don't have. Also, we're looking to control where and how many cars can park at different locations. And I know some people think this is a dirty word, but revenue. Now, we're getting revenue for the additional, we're proposing data park spaces. Will be an additional revenue. That's a small picture. The bigger picture of revenue is that we want to control it. We want to keep it manageable. We don't want this to be Coney Island, where everyone in the whole world is coming in. That developments all over this area. And we want the tourists to come here. They're spending anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 per week to come to our beach.
Now, some argue that, well, people live across 17, they should be able to come for free. Because they buy their groceries and picnics with you, you'll have a couple of cocktails and you'll be okay. But the bigger picture, that's the small picture, that those people come. They bring a little bit of revenue to the town. The big revenue, in my opinion, is the renters. So we proposed 7 different things. The first one was First Avenue golf cart pay to park. Problem is, the west side of Ocean Boulevard has had a sidewalk installed, further eliminating the amount of parking in the E district. That's between Surfside Drive and First Avenue South. The reason the sidewalk was installed on the west side of Ocean Boulevard between Surfside Drive and First Avenue to increase pedestrian safety, which has eliminated parking along that strip. President of the town has placed golf cart parking signs on First Avenue South between Ocean Boulevard eastward to the ocean. Parking committee's proposal is make the parking spaces for golf carts diagonal, which would increase the amount of parking to approximately 10 more spots. Fire department was consulted with, and they have no safety concerns after getting emergency fire apparatus into that area if there was diagonal parking there. Also spoke to the chief of police who was on the scene with us 2 weeks ago. He had no problem with it. And to help with parking, we would also recommend you allow motorcycles to park in that zone. And we'd also like you to deem the parking area a pay to park location by using Park Mobile app or text to park. You want to ask questions, each one of them, or just want me to go through each one?
I'd like to know what it's going to cost down to enforce these rules if we would decide to put these 10 parking spaces in and several of the other ones that y'all are considering. What is it going to cost the town, or it ain't going to cost us, it'll make us money, but what would Lanier charge us to monitor them other places?
I honestly don't remember. We had Lanier at one of our meetings. As we go further through this presentation, we will also want to pay to park at the beach access. Yes. So it was a combined bill. I think he said, I'm not sure. Gentleman's here, he can tell us. I think he said, I'm not sure. I think it was, my numbers might be getting mixed up, might have been $64,000 extra, but you bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So you've got a projected goal of what it would bring in, what we'd be paying out.
Yeah, we have a projected goal, but I don't want to make an assessment just on what you just told me, because I've been not brought in the loop of anything that's getting presented today.
Thanks, sir.
But it would cost extra.
Yes.
Hey, Harry, can I? So the 7 or 8 items that Harry's going over, these were originally, under our understanding, this was going to the town administrator for review, right? So that's happened? And he's liked all 8 of these items and wants to move forward workshop wise.
I presented to him and he had no problem with any one of these proposals. That's what he said to me.
Okay, so then our next step with all of this is, as far as what the costs are with Lanier and everything, would be a next step. What we're trying to do is give you guys ideas. Here's some options for parking that we think are good ideas. Here's some unutilized space in some of the lots that already exist out there that we think are unutilized, that it would be extra parking. Maybe there's angling parking in some of these lots that are the wrong direction. We went out on a field trip and we looked at all that. So as he goes through this, I think one thing to remember is these are ideas. What we put cost-wise to that afterwards is.
They're on the parking committee.
I think is what you guys as council would get now Lanier involved and say, okay, what's our cost in this? Before we went to like a reading, second reading, whatever. I think just for the purpose of time, maybe.
Well, I thought maybe y'all done had some kind of general idea of what it's going to cost to do this.
Very, very general from Lanier. I think that the things that we got out of those meetings were text apart, the Pay Mobile app.
Yeah.
Was a big thing, but the actual costs, I think, will come in a later time, what you.
Yeah, I don't want to give a cost that I can't.
Right. That's all.
We asked, we had one here for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we wanted to know if it was possible to implement this. And absolutely, it's possible. It is going to cost us extra money, but we're going to make a lot more money by doing this. I don't know the exact numbers. So,
If the parking committee recommendations, I gave it to the town administrator. The town administrator's the one that stuck it on today's workshop. So my question is, when it was stuck on today's workshop, was your recommendation set out with the agenda so that someone could read, know what?
That's what I
I
think.
have no idea.
What?
It wasn't.
Mm-mm.
That's why I was.
He was never notified that
Yeah.
they're even having a meeting. He just happened to show up.
But it is on our agenda.
We're asking the public to give comments on it, and they haven't seen what the recommendation.
That's why I was reading it out. So, you know,
Okay.
we should not do this.
This should be tabled. This should be tabled, because we didn't realize this was going on.
Let's do this, let's take a look at it. We'll take a look at it, and then we'll set a workshop.
New workshop. Just for part.
I think so.
I think this agenda item, this should be tabled for time, for what we got on here today. And just, so we get a workshop done with them.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor. I make a motion, we table the parking. Deferred parking.
We have this workshop pretty soon, but some of this is time sensitive.
Yes, it is.
We've been working on what's for the last 2 months, having meetings every 2 weeks, going field visits, 2-hour meetings to get this done. And I hate to see, oh, well, we don't have time for it.
And I appreciate it, what y'all are.
Yeah, looking at.
Just sorry,
What
everybody.
we should have done is list all the ones workshop that we were going to talk about.
Well, I have no idea.
We've heard it.
But I get from listening to what they're saying, it sounds like the residents don't know what these things are. And I think it's just, they need to get the same thing that we got so that they can look at it.
Parking committee recommendations.
I agree with you totally. I what the administrative work on.
What are you asking me? What are you asking me? Right, for you guys to discuss what they're bringing to you.
Yeah.
Not a vote and all that. It's not to go that far.
Do we not
We
need?
have a second on that?
Yes, I second.
All those in
I didn't
favor?
even hear the motion.
Motion is
sorry.
to defer.
Thank you. And who made that motion?
I second that.
Thank you.
I'm voting yes.
Yes.
No. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So do we want to set a time and place for the workshop now?
You got the spring break. From the summer board on Friday. I won't be back. So comes back to council meeting.
Sir, we need to look at the calendar with all the committees.
So we're going to think about spring break.
Right, we do it on council meeting. We do it on Tuesday.
Just put the parking on the agenda.
Yeah, I put it on the agenda. Or do a special meeting before the council meeting. Do one before the meeting.
All right, we'll talk about it. So let's, on recurring.
We did.
So that seems to be everything on the agenda. We will take public comment now, if you have one.
Very quickly, are there any major obstructions in this issue with providing those parking spaces that he's talking about? Is that why it's being brought up for the
No.
announcement? There's none.
No, it's not related at all.
That's very good. The last question is it possible to add a newsletter subscription where you can sign up to receive notifications of town councils? It exists?
It's on their website. Go under their website and look at newsletter.
So every town council, you're able to receive the agenda automatically, like it comes into your email box?
When we roll out our new website, which should be in early June, there will be a feature that you can register your email address and a whole series of topics that you want to be updated on. Every time somebody's posted, every time something is proposed to be changed or modified, you will automatically get a notification.
Thank you so much.
That's in our new system.
Boy, I'm hungry. Sean Fallon, 411 Cedar Drive. I just heard what you said about the notification. We still have many, many residents that do not have internet. And I know people are twitching their faces and everything. I took care of my parents for 20 years. Not everybody has an advocate. And if I have to be the advocate for these older people, I will be. But not everybody is connected to the internet. So how do we get this information out?
We just started, and our newsletter right now comes out quarterly, and it should be coming out not this week, but next week, okay?
By mailing?
Our newsletter from now on is gonna be mailed. We worked the deal out with the U.S. Postal Service that it will be delivered to every certified resident in the town.
And for your information, and I only know this because I have relatives that work for the post office and I've spoken to the employees here, when you mail something from here, it takes 7 to 10 days to get out. Even if you mail it there, it has to go to Myrtle Beach, Florence to Myrtle Beach to back here. So if you send something out neighbor-wise, it takes 7 to 10 days.
And we've already looked at that.
Don't say that, I want it.
It's hard to get us to get that mail. We got it done.
Thing I noticed, and this is why I'm concerned about the pick and choose. There was an individual coming up and said, oh, you've already talked to them. You've already talked too many. Is there a limit how many times you can come up here?
A regular meeting, they are.
To per subject or to just?
We did hear the subject.
Okay. 2 times across the board. Okay, because other people weren't limited. That's why I'm asking.
This is a workshop. You have more room.
Okay, all right, I need to understand.
Yeah, if we were in a regular meeting, it would be 2 times to the budget for one session.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Lynn Livingston, 10th Avenue South. I'd like for you all to remind everybody that surfsidebeach.org is the official site for the information that they may want, if it's not rumored or bad mouthing. There's a lot of Surfside sites out there, and our new people in town and the tourists get confused. So if you could sort of make that highlight maybe on the new webpage, surfsidebeach.org. I'm sure you all know that, right? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Judy Hennigan, 11th Avenue North. One more thing about meeting notices. Is it possible to get more than 24 hours or 48 hours notice of the agenda? Because I know you guys get it much sooner than that. And I think it's only fair that it be posted on the internet and the town website as soon as it's finalized and your packets go out. I don't think that's too much to ask.
It used to be.
It goes out on Fridays.
Okay, but we did it on Monday before the close of business. But then we started it with, it's been about 6 months, and we posted on Friday. And when we posted on Friday, you had from Friday until Tuesday to prepare and see what's posted on it. We thought that was plenty of time. Is that not enough time for you from Friday, being posted on Friday for Tuesday's meeting?
This meeting was not posted until, 2 days ago.
I didn't see how this meeting was posted.
I can look at my text messages and tell you because I texted somebody and asked when it was going to be posted.
It was
And not
posted, if I may, it was posted and then there was a change that was being considered. So yes, it was taken off. And then when it was finalized of what we were going to do, it was posted again on
Right.
Tuesday.
I know you do what you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay?
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? All right, next time for council.
No, it's not on the agenda.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.